Hello and welcome to another episode of Chasing Excellence. My name is Patrick Cummings, and as always here with Ben Bergeron. Every week I just said your name very funny. I don't know why I said that. Every week here on the show, we dedicate some time to exploring how we can live a life of better health and increased fulfillment. We answer your questions about the 5 factors of health, dive deep on living a life of excellence, and explore the strategies and frameworks to help us chase what truly matters. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing great. That was good with the little flub. Now they know that that's a real. That's a real live recording. That's not just like something that's plugged in.
I want to start with just a quick shout out. I came to the gym today to find a package, and I realized that we've got 2 books that listeners have written and sent us. And so I just want to give a quick shout out to both of them and a thank you for sending them along. The first is called A Champion's Life by Luis Andrade, Andrade. It is in Spanish, and so I don't know what it's about, but the subtitle is 40 Sports Stories to Develop a Success Mindset. And then the second book, which we just got by Nicholas Bunney, Bunney, is called ABCD, and it's the subtitle is Finding Happiness Through Awareness, Values, Principles, and Actions.
Oh my God.
Both are great looking books. And so I look forward to learning Spanish so that I can read Lewis's. And if high school Spanish is any indication, it'll take me about 400 years to get proficiency. Did you take any languages as a youngster?
And I went the next step into incompetency, which is actually I lived in France for 2 years during high school.
Did you really?
Still don't speak French.
Wow.
That's next level.
How did I not know that?
How do I not know French?
Well, that's a whole other question.
Yes.
I can't help you there. Yeah. But I'm surprised I didn't know you lived in France for 2 years.
I lived in J'habite à Paris. That's the only words I know.
There's no skiing there. So
there is. Oh, French Alps.
Oh, I guess that's
incredible.
True.
The best skiing in the world.
All right. So what do I know? Apparently I know nothing because I didn't know you did that. All right.
It's like you don't even know me.
No, seriously. We've got a wonderful show full of listener questions. We've got questions about training for a marathon while CrossFitting, getting past social anxiety at the gym, sleeping in, and more. Our workout is going to be a conversation, another listener question about how to develop the skill of adaptability. And we are going to kick off a new 30-day challenge at the end of this episode.
Exciting.
We are going to start with our warm-up as we always do. Your questions about the 5 factors of health, those few fundamental behaviors that most positively affect our performance, vitality, and longevity. Those 5 factors are how we eat, how we move, how we think, connect, and how we recover. Ready to rock?
Let's do it.
All right. This first question is in the move category, and it is from Jen. She asks, I'm a 51-year-old and I've been CrossFitting for 10 years. Prior to finding CrossFit, I was strictly a runner. I ran a marathon every year for 13 years. Once I started CrossFit, I stopped running long distance. My current routine is CrossFit Monday through Friday, rest on Saturday, and run 3 miles on Sundays. My 21-year-old son recently has become passionate about running and joined a running club in New York where he goes to school. He asked me if I would run the Brooklyn Half Marathon with him at the end of April. I'm ecstatic and signed us both up immediately. I don't know where to start with the training. Replace a day or 2 of CrossFit with running or something else.
Okay. So half marathon is 13.1 miles.
Mm-hmm.
She does, first of all, I love the protocol. She does CrossFit 5 days a week, runs 3 miles,
rest day and
currently runs 3 miles on the weekend, takes the other day off. Terrific. The next thing I would want to know is what's the goal for the marathon? Mm-hmm. Is it to stay with her son who's looking to do this in 2 hours? Is she looking to get back to her PR times? Is it a compete to complete, mm-hmm. or is it a compete to compete?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to, I don't know if I'm going to answer both of them or not. So I just need to give a really specific answer. That's what we need to know. Because I'll give both. Because if it's just like, hey, I want to do this thing, I want to feel good afterwards, I want to be with my son who's just getting into this, I want to be his training buddy and his race buddy, then it's fairly simple. You're just going to turn those 3 miles into it's going to be no different than she's done for the other 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
Marathon training programs are almost all follow the same blanket template, which is on the weekends, you do a long run. That long run increases in distance from 1 to 2 miles over the course of whatever the training duration of the program is, 6 to 12 weeks. So if she's starting off at 3, the next suggestion I would do is like the next week, she tries to do 5. The next week after that, she's going to try and do 6 or 7. The next week after that, 7 or 8, 9, up until about 10. You don't need to run much more than 10 for a half marathon. If it's an actual marathon, we cap that at about 16 to 18. Actual marathon, you want to get about 3 runs above 16. But for her, that's the goal. Can you just slowly ramp up on those Sunday runs to get up to a 10 miler? If your goal is to complete this thing.
Yep.
If you're getting beat up a little bit from those long runs, take that Monday off of the gym, and then you're now down to 4 days a week with a day off before and after your long runs. That's the protocol. Now, if you want to try to get in under, an hour and a half, that's a different ball game. In that case, it's going to similar thing on the weekends, but you're definitely going to peel back from a CrossFit day, add an extra running day in there, and that running day will probably almost always be like a 5 miler. And people are like, whoa, what about all the intervals? What about all the quality training? The CrossFit part will take care of that because you can build up so much of the faster twitch and the speed stuff. So you're going to add a 5 miler, whatever day you want that feels really good, and then just kind of allow the other day to go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Have you found that with runners or kind of former runners into CrossFit, do they have an advantage when they pick running
100%.
back up? 100%. Whatever, even if it's like
endurance stays with you for a long time.
Yeah, so she might find that like within a couple of weeks, she's like, okay, I got my sea legs back.
Yeah, and did she say how long ago she was a runner? She said she did 13
years in a row.
But how long?
No, doesn't say. Like,
so like for an example, like if she was running 13 marathons,
she said she's been CrossFitting for 10 years. So
maybe it's been 10 years since then?
Maybe it's been 10 years since she's been like a legit.
There will be some legacy to that endurance, but 10 years is probably where it will there's going to be pretty good degradation from where she was. To put just a different perspective of that, when I was doing Ironman triathlons, and I stepped away and didn't do them for 2 years, I could actually go out and just do a marathon with like 2 runs before it, because it was just, you built up so much endurance on that side. Not at the same pace, but your capacities stay. Yep. It's kind of like, another way to think about this is strength takes years to build, but it's lost fairly quickly.
Yep.
Whereas endurance can be built up fairly quickly in weeks, but there's a much longer tail to it. It doesn't go away as fast.
All right, next.
That's so nice. Don't you wish everything was like that?
Yes. Next question is from Michael. It's in our think category. I'm diagnosed with ADHD and have been trying to get on top of my alcohol addiction for over 10 years now.
Good job, Michael.
Yeah, I'm a keen rock climber and sailor, but I've been more recently trying to join CrossFit and calisthenics training circles at local gyms. One barrier I face is the social anxiety I have when in group training. On one hand, I know that group training is quite possibly the best option, as my self-motivation lacks when training by myself at home. On the other hand, being in a group where I feel quite socially uncomfortable to the point of not wanting to go is a deterrent. I'm hoping to find some tools to help change this mindset, ease the anxiety, and allow myself mental freedom to stick with the training.
I have some parallels with Michael. Never struggled with alcohol addiction, but I grew up sailing, competitive sailing as well, and had levels of social anxiety, not related to social gatherings, but I had it in an academic setting. And it's going to sound like, why are we talking about this? But I think it's poignant. When I was in college, people listening know that I've have dyslexia, and it was worse when I was younger. I feel like it's gotten a lot better, which is a weird thing that, like, it's like, I don't, when you have it, people feel like you have it, but it's definitely got a lot better. But when I was in college, I was in a philosophy class, and I can't remember if it was philosophy or religion. I can't remember because it was very similar, but it doesn't matter. And the way this professor ran class was kind of strange, and I look back on it, but also kind of cool, is the way the class was set up. We were just person by person take turns reading a page from scripture or the Bible, or whatever it might have been. And after a certain time, he'd pause the group and we talk about it. But I was so terrified, the anxiety of the thought of having to read in front of people, that much like Michael, it would freeze me to the point where I skipped like the vast majority of those classes. And it was a real thing for me.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So if I was to go back and talk to my former self and give myself their advice, how would I deal with that? It's not the thing what comes to me is not the thing that would have ever come to me at that point, which is I would suggest that younger Ben goes up to the professor and be vulnerable with that professor of what you're struggling with, and share it with them and let them know, here's what I'm dealing with. I have dyslexia. I'm petrified of reading out loud in public. And it's causing me not to want to come to this class. And then together try to figure out what the appropriate solution is. That's the way, because I wouldn't have had the answer. I think the idea is to come up with tools, right?
Yeah.
Do some breathing techniques before you go there.
Yeah.
Learn to, reframe things, like all these mental tools. And to me, those are all valuable, but nothing would move the needle as much as having another person.
An ally.
Exactly right. And not only an ally, the person that is determining the way the class is being structured and maybe he goes, okay, why don't you in this class sit over here and I'll make sure that like we don't get to that part. Yep. Like, cool. Or maybe he goes like, you know what, kid, that's your problem. You have to deal with it. It's like, cool, I'm dropping this class.
Right.
Like you just know ahead of time. And so my suggestion to Michael is be vulnerable. This is the hardest part, but you only have to do it once. Instead of having to fight this battle every single time you want to go to the class, because I do agree with him. For somebody that struggles with accountability, there's nothing better than getting an environment of other people that are doing those hard things. But go up to the coach and let them know what you're struggling with. Let them know about your ADHD. Let them know about your struggles with alcohol and let them know that you have social anxiety disorder, whatever it might be, and ask them for their input and suggestion. Maybe they go like, oh my gosh, like we've had 6 other people like that. One of them is Mark, who's in your class. Let me just introduce you to Mark. I won't say anything about this, but it might be a connection that the two of you guys have, even if it's subconsciously, you guys know, right? Or he goes, hey, you know what? For the first week, just stay in the back of the class. Don't worry about interacting. I'll make sure I don't call your name out loud. At the end of class, if you want to skedaddle out of here, don't worry about it. Just like you being here is the win. But at least then you have an ally on your side helping work through this challenging situation instead of you on an island in your car doing breath work techniques so you're brave enough to take the 50 steps.
Or hoping you find the next tactic,
Exactly.
next.
Yeah.
Or grin and bear it and pretend it's not. It makes me think of something I heard recently, which is this concept, and I don't want to put words in what you're saying in terms of how you were experiencing, but this concept of like shame thrives in the shadows. And until you shine a light on it, it will always continue to thrive and grow and metastasize. And so I think about that as what your suggestion, I was exactly the same person. To be able to have had just the moment, right? What is that thing? Like you just need like 2 seconds of bravery. To have just had the 2 seconds of bravery to shine a light on the thing would have made, to your point, would have created an ally, but also would have probably helped reduce some of the shame. If you name it, it's not as scary anymore because you can look at it and you can say, well, what is this thing or why is it? Or
I've heard the same analogy and I love that. I'm glad we're talking about this in terms of your fears, right? So you call it shame, you call it fears, but like your fear is a monster and we're afraid of monsters. And if you don't talk about the monster in the closet and you don't know what that monster looks like and you don't even, your imagination kind of grows and it grows and it becomes scarier and scarier. But if you were to swing the door open and shine that spotlight on it and go, oh, you're a gorilla and your name is George. Now all of a sudden you have this relationship with it. And from there you can work with it. Before that, it's like, this thing isn't real. And obviously Michael's far enough along in the journey that he's writing into us, talking about alcohol issues, ADHD, social, he's like a whole lot farther along than I was when I struggled with this.
Yep. I remember in those situations, I would spend the entire time basically counting how many people before I had to do the thing that everybody was doing, right? In that, and which is just as bad as not showing up, because effectively I wasn't listening. So I would not listen to anything going on, waiting for my turn, and then I would go, and then I would just story tell about what I just did. And so I was in the room, but I was not.
You know when that shows up is like, let's go around the room and introduce yourselves and tell us something that no one else in the room knows about you.
Yep.
Instead of listening to everyone else, you're like, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? And then, oh my gosh, I hope I come up with the right thing. And it comes back, and right after you go, you're like, why did I say that? I shouldn't have said that. It's like.
Totally. Yep. All right, Michael, we wish you nothing but the best. Keep at it.
Cool.
Next question is from Heldith. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Heldith. It's in our eat category. I usually have a good breakfast, overnight oats with protein powder and some berries. Then after my workout, I also have some protein powder. Then before bed, I also have some protein powder. Even though I count my calories and macros, I'm wondering if it would be better to minimize protein powders to maybe once a day and then change that for real food. Any health or performance benefits or even negative effects on hitting 40 to 50% of my protein macros from whey protein powders.
Okay.
How much protein powder is too much?
Dun, dun, dun. It depends, right? So if it's protein, what's held as, first off, let's back up for a second. Good on you. This is good. Like a really easy place to start for a lot of people is let's get rid of the processed crap and let's see if we can get somewhere between 90 and 150 grams of protein in a day. Like how simple is that, right? Like no crap, make sure you're getting the protein. Like I love that as a starting point. So getting the protein. And
making it easy to actually hit those targets.
Completely.
Which protein powders are.
I know that like when we talked to EC, so first off, like if you went back and this question probably came in before we had EC on and before we had Chris Kresser on, but like those two episodes are basically this question combined. So it's like about quality, it's about protein, and that's about nutrient density and all that stuff. But here's a really simple way. If you don't have the processed stuff and you're having that basically 3 scoops of protein powder a day, if you're a very small athlete, that's 90 grams, right? Most protein powders have about 25 to 30 grams of protein. If you're a really small person, like 125, 130 pounds, that's probably pretty close. If you're a bigger person, 180 pounds, we probably want closer to 150. Think of it, 3 meals, no snacking, 30 to 50 grams of protein at a meal. Like I really have a harder time coming up with something like simpler than that. It's so satisfying to have that much protein. You're going to get all the growth. So I digress, but I like that framework of healthy eating. Just like 3 meals a day, no snacks, no seconds, no desserts, no crap food, whole foods, and the protein. Now, okay, how do we level that up? Well, yes, there's more nutrient. You'll get more benefit out of a piece of wild-caught salmon than you would from really clean protein powder. It just does not have the nutrient density that something else would. But other foods might have higher caloric density than the protein powder, so that might be not as advantageous. Another thing to consider, if you're hungry between meals, I would suggest not doing the protein shake, but doing something other than that, because liquid just gets digested so much faster. Think of it in terms of surface area, right? It doesn't have to do much work. It's just like it's broken into these tiny little particles so fast you can digest them just from a surface area perspective. Okay. There's a few different things to consider. My overall suggestion is if we could start with no processed foods, 30 to 50 grams of protein from whole foods. That's where we start. Now, that's not the case for everybody. So a lot of people need to go to protein powder, and that's the place for it. So to Heldith's direct answer is yes. You will get more health benefits from the whole food sources than you would from protein powder. But if you're going to go away from protein powder and find yourself creeping towards processed foods, then we're not steering in the right direction. The only other thing I'll kind of add to this is when people have protein powder, they usually mix it with water, and she's probably getting 5 close to 5 shaker bottles full of water a day, which is awesome. Like lots of hydration there. If you find yourself going to 0 of those, you're going to real food, but you also find yourself having 0 water, that might not be a benefit as well. So it's not just a binary yes or no. It's a, when you do this, what happens to the other factors? If the other factors are all still trending positive, we just named them all. I don't need to rename them. Then yes, I would go more towards a whole food source because there is more health and other benefits from whole food sources than rich from supplementation.
Got it. Next question is from Jules in our recover category. Ben frequently mentions sleeping in as something bad. However, many people seem to be sleeping too little, while it is probably the key recovery element. Should we cap sleep then? When or why is sleeping in bad? I try to get 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night, but if I have a week where with 7, I like to recover with 2 nights of some more sleep.
Okay.
Why are you demonizing sleeping in, Ben?
Well, because Jules is asking, she doesn't realize it. I think it's boy or girl.
That is a great question.
Yeah.
We'll go with female. I don't know.
She's... My mind just went all the way to Pulp Fiction because there's a male Jules in Pulp Fiction. It's like
we just lost you for a second.
God, I was gone. I went far deep too. I was like, there's a Band-Aid on the back of his neck. You don't see his face. There's the gold thing. Is that really his soul? Like, I went really deep.
Yeah, that was...
Pulp Fiction's a cool movie. Yes, violent, lots of swears, but it's a cool movie. Okay. Forrest Gump got Best Picture that year. I think it should have been Pulp Fiction. Okay. We can edit all that out. Okay. I'm really lost my track. What was the... sleep. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. She's asking actually 2 questions. She's asking a question for herself and she's asking a question for everybody else. Because she says most people don't sleep enough. But
she's saying,
but she does sleep enough. It's a different answer for Jules than it is for somebody else. That's the big thing.
She's defending everybody else.
Yeah. So she's trying to lump herself into the people that don't sleep enough. Shouldn't we be getting more sleep on the weekends? Okay. So for Jules, who sleeps 8 to 9 hours a night, one night might get down as low as 7. Should we be sleeping in longer on the weekends to make up for that? Sleeping in more than 8 or 9? No, you should not.
Because then theoretically she's at like 9 or 10.
And here's the downside of that. The newest kind of like, if you've been listening here a little bit, the newest thing that we've been talking about more and more. So there's sleep quantity, right? Which everyone knows 7 to 9 hours. We got that part. Okay. One sort of like caveat to that is that's not from lights out to lights on. That's sleep. And most of the time that you're in bed for an hour longer than you are actually sleeping. So add an hour to that. Yep. And then we want 7 to 9 of actual sleep time. So lights out to lights on should be 8 to 10. Okay. That's not the question. We're cool with that one. The next one we talk about a lot is sleep hygiene, right? And that's like have a cool bedroom, make sure that it's completely dark. Let's not avoid screens beforehand. Let's have a warm shower beforehand. Let's make sure we're doing some sort of wind down, like reading or something like that. So there's the sleep hygiene aspect of that, the quality. Yep. But then there's the third one, which is consistency. And the way I like it is just QQC, right? Quality, quantity, and consistency. If people have been listening, the consistency thing is popping up more and more and more. And there is some research to show that this one is as and sometimes more important than the other two. Every single cell on your body has sensors on it trying desperately to figure out what time of day it is. That sounds weird, but your body is set up so that it does it's going through like a hormone release on a clock. It needs to know when to do its cortisol. It needs to know when to do its adenosine. It needs to know when to do a whole host of things, right down to digestion and other things. And the only way it can the most effective way it does that is when you go to sleep and when you wake up. It goes, okay, now it's morning time. Now it's nighttime. If you change that, so I'm going to give 2 examples to kind of show that. If you change that, things get messed up. Daylight savings.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone changes not everyone. Most people change their sleep by 1 hour. Doesn't seem like that big of a deal. 1 hour. Over heart attacks the next day, when we lose an hour of sleep, go up by over 20%. Mm. From 1 hour of, that's not quality, that's not hygiene, that's consistency. Now, I should say that actually is, it is a quantity thing as well, but it's also like you're messing up the time. Okay, the next day when we get an extra hour of sleep, I'm realizing now that I'm talking about the quality thing, but stay with me. Heart attacks, when we get an extra hour of sleep, heart attacks go down by 20%. Okay. If you just delay your sleep, we're going to get the same amount of sleep. So we're still going to sleep 8 hours, but I'm going to go to bed 2 hours later. So instead of going to bed at 10 and getting up at 6, I'm going to go to bed at midnight and get up at 8. That simple 2-hour change, you miss the biggest opportunity for a hormone in your body called HGH, human growth hormone, which keeps you young and keeps you strong. Pretty good for our audience. You miss the major release of that. It still has a drip, drip, drip later on, but there is a asymmetrically large dump early on. Mm-hmm. You don't, this is the weird thing, you don't just get that 2 hours later. You literally, if you go to bed 2 hours later, you literally skip it. You skip the dump. Your body knows not when you go to sleep, it goes based off of the time that we go to sleep. This is when we do this. Up, you're still awake, pause. Okay, now you're asleep now at midnight. We're going to do the midnight thing. And the midnight thing is not the big dump, which we want. The sleep thing is the amount of time is really, really important for regulation. Even if you go like, no, like, I'm going to sleep in an extra 2 hours and I can still go to bed at the same time. It's not even a matter of how tired you are. You want to, one of the best things you can do for sleep, I'll say it again, one of the best things you can do is wake up and fall asleep within a half hour of the same time every single night. Yep. Now, is there an exception to that? I will say yes, to her extreme, which is I don't sleep enough. I sleep 4 hours a night, which is not enough. You need 7. On the weekends, I have the opportunity to get an extra, to sleep 9 hours. Should I do that? My suggestion would be yes. It's not necessarily like a bank, like you take deposits and credits and it's just like 1 for 1. I missed an hour here, I'll make up an hour here. But it's you can earn a little bit of that back.
I'm flashing back to episodes in years past when my oldest son now was not a good sleeper, and so I had like the 3 years of this podcast. Every time we talked about sleep, like I'd be like, I want that, I need more of that, and thankfully we're kind of out of that phase. But anytime we talk about sleep now,
going like, so this is poignant for the audience. Is I've talked so much about how important we both have about routines. And routines is a big part of what we believe in here. For the better part of my adult life, I've been getting somewhere close to 7 hours of sleep, probably plus or minus a half hour. Sometimes it's 6:45, sometimes it's 7:15, but that was my norm during the week. Over the last, I'll say 4 months-ish, the morning routine that I've been so proud of with sauna and yoga and journaling and breath work, I've actually foregone that and am now getting over 8 hours of sleep, not bedtime. I'm getting 8 to 8.5 hours of sleep every night. Remember, we talk about everything has a trade-off. You can't have it all. So you got to figure out where those things are. And I think that for where I was in my career, in my life, in trying to establish who I was on both career, family was new, all of those things, it was appropriate probably for me to create that level of, because it allowed me a lot of awareness and self-introspection and creating the space and all that stuff. Right now, I also believe that I'm not nearly as tired come 3 o'clock as I used to be. I haven't woken up with an alarm clock.
Yep.
This is kind of crazy. I haven't woken up with an alarm clock in months. I don't even set it anymore. I wake up at 5:45 to 6 o'clock every single day with an alarm clock.
Yep. And that's been burned in for a while though, right? Because haven't you been taking that?
No, I was getting up a lot earlier.
That's true. Yep. Okay.
I was getting up at like between 5. I was usually getting up around 5,
I was just thinking about
5:15,
the class that you take.
5:25, somewhere around. I was getting up a half hour earlier and also going to bed. We didn't have a good night rhythm either, but we've gotten a lot better at that. Is like kids lights out 8:15.
Yep. Got it. All right. Let's move on to our Connect bucket. Don't have a name for this one, but a coworker who has the exact same position as me and with whom I work most often is a gossip, a busybody, and a complainer. He constantly wants to call and message me and others within my company, within the company, with long repetitive complaints about our company and our customers without ever proposing a solution or acknowledging that many of these situations are outside of our control. He also loves to be the person who is in everybody's business, spreading the hot gossip, name-dropping people within the industry. At this point, many of my coworkers refuse to even accept his calls, but I don't have that luxury since I work with them on the daily. I don't need this kind of energy in my life. How can I communicate with him politely but firmly that this can't continue?
Okay, this is I feel like this is a fairly common question, though shades of this in different forms and fashion. It's my husband doesn't chase excellence. I do. The first one is recognizing that it's not an overnight fix. No one singular conversation is going to change the thing. And essentially what you're doing is, what the listener is asking is, how do I change a culture? Now it's a culture of two, right? You and this other person.
Interpersonal culture.
Exactly. But how do you change culture? Yep. Well, culture, that's hard. Yep. That's a real hard thing. That's why the easiest thing to do whenever you have the opportunity is to flip over the poker table, whatever you want to do, and like start from scratch. Like, it's when we can do a roll up of a CrossFit gym. We don't want the old culture. So we come in and we do the whole staff is gone. Unfortunately, they can earn a position. They can go through the hiring process, come back in, but we don't want the old regime. Put some paint and some lipstick on it. We want it to look and feel different because we don't want the old sitting around. We want it to, so you could do that in this situation, but it's probably not going to come off what they said in the last part of it, which is like in a polite way or whatever it might be.
Right? Just how do I communicate it with politely?
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
but I think it's gonna be politely but firmly.
Politely but firmly. Okay. So that's gonna be hard to do in that situation. So how do you do this in a polite way, which is basically like I've had to do several times at the gym, where all of a sudden if you're not tending to the garden every single day, weeds are going to start to grow. So what you need to do is you need to go in there and start weeding, not removing people, just like cleaning stuff up and paying attention. And when you're doing this with a singular person, to me, it starts with just politely, but just dropping things in and recognizing, again, it's not going to happen overnight. This is not going to change, but what we want to do is like just keep dropping it. So the person continually complains about other people, and the listener, is there a name on this one?
No name this one.
They're answering it in their question they said they complain without proposing, offering any solution.
Yep.
So that's what you're going to ask the person. So when they complain about something, you go, that's really interesting. What do you think we should do about this? And if they complain, it's not being, okay, understood. What do you think we should do about this? And then just kind of keep coming back. Like if they go, holy crap, I can't have this. We were at our kids' soccer game. People just like to complain. Mm-hmm. We were at our kids' soccer game the other day, and it was really cold. And they had us move from one sideline to the other. So now we're facing the sun, which is like thank God, right? Mm-hmm. And they go, oh, this is great. Now I'm going to get wrinkles. It's like we'll look for anything to complain about, right? A mom actually said that. Yeah. I was like, wow. So there are people that like want to complain about that. But I would constantly go like about what let's go with a solution-oriented mindset. Now, you don't have to go to the person and go like, hey, Bob, you're complaining. Let's bring a solution-oriented mindset to these conversations. It's not that at all. But if someone goes like, I can't believe it's freaking raining again, you go, it is. Do you have any solution for the rain? And they'll be like, what? It's like, well, you're complaining about the raining. Is there something that you want to do about it? And they'd be like, no, there's nothing that's going to be, it just sucks that it's raining. Like, oh, but there's nothing you can do about it? Yeah. Okay. And just like, without being rude, without being coy, without being annoying, without being overly sarcastic, you have nothing else to lose in this situation anyway, other than let's bring to light. We need, and if this is a business situation, it's actually easier than a friend situation, because you go, they're complaining about their business partners, their coworkers. Like Sally isn't pulling her weight. She's not doing any of the work on this project. You go, that's super interesting, Bob. What do you think we should do about it? Like Bob's got to flip into like solving mode at that point. If Bob doesn't, you just got to pull back into, we're here to solve problems. We're here to solve problems. That's how we move this thing forward. It's not easy at all. Does it take some level of tact? Will it take some level of practice to find the effective way to do it? Absolutely. This is the way we do it at our gym, though, is we try to nip it every single time it shows up. It's the reason we have never whine, never complain bracelets, because we're trying to make it a part of the ecosystem what we have here. And when people complain, we in real time try to pull it out and make them understand it. I can't believe we have to do this workout today. You mean we get to do this workout today? It's like, just like in real time, reframe things. And if he goes like, oh my gosh, like this person is just, oh, you're going to be the sunshine police. You're going to be the person that makes it. And they get frustrated complaining to you. Solved. Exactly right.
Yeah. Because you don't have to change them. You just have to change some of their behavior.
Yes.
And if I always think gossip and complaining, it feeds itself. And so what that person is really looking for is somebody to give it back to them, because then they feel like we're in this together. We get to talk about that person, or we get to complain without any stakes, because like now we're just bonding with each other. And a lot of time gossip and complaining is really just a search for like, connection. Do we have a connection here? Are we on the same team? Do we see this thing that I'm seeing?
It's because it gives you a sense of control, gives you a sense of empowerment, like I know better. And it's together, like, aren't we on the same page? Like us against them type thing. And the them could be anything, right? It could be a political party. The them could be the weather. The them could be your competitors. It could be anybody. But if we're on the same page, that's a real good level of connection. Are you on my team against it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you gotta, it's hard because it's tempting it's crazy tempting, because if you give into it, you're on the same team. But you gotta you gotta fight that really tempting enemy, because that's what it is. It's gonna end up stabbing you.
Love that. If you folks out there listening want to get a question in the queue, I invite you to find me on Instagram, PS Cummings. Drop me a DM. There's also a button there if you want to email me if you are not on Instagram. Let us know what you would like us to chat about in future episodes. Ben and I will be back shortly to get into our workout, which is going to be a conversation around how to develop and grow adaptability. We talk about kicking ass into our 90s all the time, and it's important to recognize that in order to do that, we have to be strong enough, long enough to actually kick said ass with enough strength and velocity to matter. Head to timelinenutrition.com/excellence to learn how their signature product, MitoPure, can help you do just that. MitoPure is the first nutrient clinically proven to trigger a crucial recycling process within our cells called mitophagy, which fights age-related cellular decline by preventing the accumulation of dysfunctional mitochondria. And let me tell you, I am dysfunctional enough, so I'll take any help I can get from the mitochondria on up. Timeline Nutrition has 3 different products: a powder mix that's great in smoothies or juices, a whey protein powder, and soft gels for quick and easy access. They are offering 10% off your first order of MitoPure. Just head to timelinenutrition.com/excellence and use the code excellence. Again, for those in the back, timelinenutrition.com/excellence. All right, we are back with our workout. We are going to get a question from Daniel. He asks a very simple question. How do you develop and grow adaptability? And maybe start with like, what do you, when you hear that word adaptability, what do you think about, or what pops into your mind when you think of that idea?
I think it's exactly the right, 100% the right place to start. Adaptability is the ability to respond / adjust to changing conditions, circumstances, environment, things, right? That's what it is. It's your ability to deal and adjust with changes.
Yep. I love that you broke those two parts, respond and adjust.
Yes.
I think it's interesting. Yep. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So this could show up as an athlete in competition, right? You thought that you were going to have a really strong running attack and they're stifling it. So now you have to go to a passing game. You were planning on facing a zone defense. They're playing man-to-one, playing you one-on-one. How do you respond to that? You are down by 20 at halftime. You didn't expect that to be the case. How are you going to respond? It's now time to run the marathon, and you've been training all winter. This is really poignant. We have the marathon in Boston come up next week. And you've been training in 20 degrees, and marathon day, it's 85. Like, how do you respond? That's adaptability. Yep. Okay, let's do the cliche quote. As I think it was Darwin said, it's not the strongest or the most intelligent that survives, but the most adaptable to change. That's so like, this is the guy that studied like, origin of species, like how do like organisms create and evolve and survive. It is not the strongest or the smartest, but the best that can adapt to its changing environments. Holy crap. There's also another one that from the more recent Richard Branson, Virgin, Virgin everything. Records are probably gone now. Is that still a thing?
I don't know the Virgin
Airlines, everything else, cruises, the guy that like skydives out of hot air balloons and kite surfs and goes over Niagara Falls in a barrel. Like, I don't know if he's done that, but it seems like that kind of guy.
Probably has.
Okay. His saying is, every success story, I'm going to probably butcher this, but every success story is essentially a tale of adaptability and ability to change on the fly. That's it. Like, if you want to be successful, that's what you have to be able to do. Okay, let's do my take, which is, and this isn't my take, but something I talk about with our team all the time, is the only constant. This is like a level of like, the only constant is change. Like, there's nothing else in the world. There's nothing else in the world, in the universe, that has remained constant. Stars are born and die and explode. And the earth wasn't even here before. And then the earth was this thing of magma. And then it was this frozen ball. And it was one, is it Pangea? Is that what it's called? When it's one singular continent and it breaks apart. Like, every single thing in our entire universe is constantly changing. For us to resist that, forget about like an unwillingness to accept it. Like, we have this resistance against change is insanity. It is literally the opposite of the realistic mindset. We want to be realist. We have to understand that change is at play. We need not only to accept, that's step number one, not only do we need to accept that this is always going to be the case, what else did you think was going to happen? But then roll with the punches. But not only that, like, not only accept, not only roll with it, but then play the game. Like, it's changing, go change. of the Fortune 500 companies, I'm about to make up a stat. Of the Fortune 500 companies, yeah, or the Dow Jones Industrial Average, like of the most powerful companies that existed from 100 years ago to now, I'm going to wager a bet it is a very, very, very small percentage of them that are still there.
Mm-hmm.
I think 100 years ago, it'd be things like, steel companies and mills and paper factories. And those aren't even, in railroads, and those things aren't even a thing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And now and the only reason that they're not there is because they failed to adapt to the changes. If the most powerful companies in the world, right? They're the most powerful companies in the world are gone only because they didn't adapt to the changes.
There's a great example of that, not to cut in, but
Please.
Kodak. Kodak owned photography for years and years and years, and they saw and had access to digital photography almost before anybody else. But the people there didn't want to shift. They didn't want to adapt what had always worked and move it into the future versus what had always worked in the past. And there's still Kodak, I think, exists, but certainly not what it could have been, because they'd seen what it was going to be and they chose the safe path of the past versus the unknown path of the future.
Okay, I think we laid the groundwork for what is adaptability and why is it necessary. So then the listener question was like, how do you
develop and grow I'm gonna put word in there, but the skill of adaptability, because it feels like that's kind of what we're circling around.
Okay, I think that it's probably a couple of soft skills and then maybe a hard one. Mm-hmm. Okay, the first one is the circle of control, which we've talked a lot about. Like, do you have control over this changing environment, right? Like, AI is coming. Yep. Okay, like, you're not going to be the one that goes like, nope, let's put a stop to that. Yep. We want to keep it the way we are. We want it still to be VCRs. Yep. Like, nope, sorry, Netflix, you're not going to be able, I don't want you to do your thing. We're going to keep with the, the Blockbuster, go on a Friday night, get your pizza and get your VHS to, like, you don't have, it's happening, the change. So letting go of your ego, like, you might have been phenomenal in this former or even current environments. The environment is changing. You might not be number one, but it doesn't mean you have to give up. You can take a step back to 2 or 3 and then work your tail off to get back to being number one. Recognizing that you don't have control or a say in everything, but you do in terms of your effort and where your attention goes. If you just kind of go, nope, we're going to stick to this thing. Well, yeah, you're going to be the lone Blockbuster in Juneau, Alaska that's still doing its thing.
Rocking.
Yeah. So that'd be the first one, let go of your ego. With that goes like just this level of when you think of the change, are you inherently embracing or resisting it? Mm-hmm. Because if you're like, okay, this is happening, but God, it kind of sucks and I wish it was this, like, yeah, you're just not gonna be able to bring everything to the table you could otherwise if you embraced it. Like, imagine instead having a meeting with your team going, guys, this is the way the world is going. We're not going to pretend it's not. This is where we're going to go. And let's have a group of a really productive discussion with these really smart people in the room on how we can best put our front foot forward in this new direction. Mm-hmm. That's so different than going like, well, guys, this sucks, but you know what? It looks like we're going to have to do something about this. Like, whether you are embracing or resisting it at a deep fundamental level matters. Mm-hmm. So learn to embrace that change. And if you can, bring a certain level of, the word that we love to use on this one is a level of curiosity. Mm-hmm. Curiosity is always about, to me, it goes back to that like growth mindset. If you have a growth mindset, it's kind of like, I wonder if we can pull this thing off. Mm-hmm. Like, that's so cool, as opposed to this fixed mindset of binary pass fails. The I wonder if, it's like kind of David Goggins' big thing too. It's like, I wonder what if I could pull this off. that is there's such a level of flexibility and freedom in I wonder, as opposed to the fear of failure.
Mm-hmm.
So when change is afoot, whether it's you've been the only guy in your company, you're the podcast guy in this company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What goes through your head when things change and we bring in a second podcast guy in this company, right? If you go like, what the hell's going on here? Like, and you have this level of resistance, and now, oh, they don't think I'm as good as this guy going to steal my job. But if you go like, whoa, I wonder if with this guy, what could we really actually create? Like, that's a really different paradigm, totally different perspective.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick just because it's funny to me. I think it's Sesame Street. It might be Daniel Tiger.
I already like it. Whatever. Oh my God. Or Daniel Tiger.
Yeah. But it's obviously I've got a 3-year-old, so we watch these, and they have this song that's when you're presented with a problem, it's this kind of order of operations. We say, I wonder, what if, let's try.
Oh
and that's
my God.
the problem you go through to solve the problems. I wonder, what if, let's try.
Why is that only Sesame Street?
I don't know. I'm bringing it out.
Like, why are they not teaching that in like sophomore year of high school?
Yes. Yeah.
That is not a hyperbole. Like,
no,
why are
legit.
we not teaching that? Like every single kid, like, okay, yes, you can name the capital of Kansas. Cool. Can you work through that?
Yeah.
Can we practice through that? Okay. You know what a right angle is. You know what the Pythagorean theorem is. Okay. Do we know? I wonder, what if,
let's try.
Seth
Godin always says that education should be teaching people how to solve interesting problems.
So that's actually the hard skill. That's actually the next thing I was going to talk about is like, if you, again, solution-oriented mindset, but not only solution-oriented mindset, but problem solving is a skill.
Mm-hmm.
And
isn't that kind of what adaptability is?
Exactly.
To a degree,
right?
Right?
So
So interesting.
How do you do this? Like,
I never put those two
working on the skill of problem solving. So that's probably a podcast unto itself.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, how do you problem solve? Whether it's okay, you list out the actual problems. Can you root the issue? Go back 3 or 4 dominoes to make sure you're actually solving the real issue and not solving some symptom of it. Okay. Your foot hurts. You could take a painkiller, but maybe you actually like, with a little bit of discovery, you realize that there's a pebble in your shoe that's been in there for the last 6 months, and you could probably do a little bit something different. So remove the pebble. Like, what we want to do is like do a little discovery, like problem solving, like what is the actual root issue? And then what is the systematic approach we want to get to a new end? Begin with a new end in mind. And what is the step-by-step process we can use to get there without any big, massive hurdles? Let's make sure we're getting one before the next. Make sure we all are on the same vision and aligned. Make sure we've assigned the appropriate roles and responsibilities. And we're checking in along the way to hold people accountable in a peer-to-peer fashion. There's a whole lot of ways we could work through problem solving. But to me, it's kind of like, I wonder, what if, let's try, but then let's try something else. Let's try something else. Let's try something else. Let's try something else. And the better you get at that, that build, measure, learn algorithm, the let's try can get a little bit, because you go like, oh, well, we've tried these things in the
many
past.
ways, the let's try, okay, I wonder why that didn't work. Or I wonder if we did. Exactly. It's back to the top, to the top of that flywheel. So just so that I'm tracking, we kind of have like step one is an element of awareness that everything is changing. And to pretend it's not, or to resist it on a macro level is, absurd. The definition of absurd, right?
For real.
So then we've got, okay, so we are aware of it, and then we have to accept it to a degree. We have to have the mindset around acceptance versus resistance towards it. And then the third one is which is the third step, at least kind of in our conversation, is the one that I think everybody jumps to, which is like, fix it, solve it, do a thing, change what you're doing. Do we skip anything?
No, I don't think people jump to that, is what I was going to say.
You don't think so?
I think people get caught up in the maze of resisting it. And they just like want to change it from the change happening. So they're just caught up in this, like, how do we stop this from happening? Like, okay, we're going to hire another podcast guy. How do you stop us from hiring another podcast guy?
Right.
Instead of like, how do we make this thing even better?
Yep.
But I would say I don't know if we're skipping something, but maybe not. Maybe we could pull on the thread a little bit of it is a sense of deliberate calmness through the whole thing.
Yeah. So
if we're sailing across a really calm sea, like everyone's going to have a good time. Yep. Like there's nothing really to get excited about. There's also nothing to get scared about. There's no reason for excitement, but there's also no story at the end of this thing because it's just like this. Yep. But when the seas get really rough, the people with the greatest adaptability get calmer and calmer and calmer. So let's say you're running an event production company and it's the night before the event. I should just tell the story because it's what's going through my head. So we're running an event called the East Coast Championships. Yep. We rent out the World Trade Center in the seaport of Boston. This massive facility that's crazy expensive. And we have to bring bleachers into this inside thing so that fans can watch this CrossFit competition. We're inviting the 50 best athletes in the world to compete in. Okay, what happens when tomorrow is the event, the bleachers show up and they don't fit inside the building?
Like couldn't get in the door.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that requires a level of adaptability. Here's what doesn't help that. Chaos and freaking out.
Yep. Blaming, complaining.
It just never getting stressed about a situation makes it better. Mm-hmm. Like from a physiological standpoint, you won't operate as well. So you staying calm and once you kind of like pop your head up 3,000 foot view and go like, yeah, like of course not. Now it's so much harder that in real time because let's do it to a scenario that more people can associate with. You're exhausted. You just want to go to bed and your 3-year-old is doing their thing.
I was thinking kids
right?
require demand adaptability. Yeah.
And you just want to go like, you just want to like freak out a little bit. You're so frustrated. There's no way to logically explain something to a 3-year-old. So you just want to like vent. Never does that make the situation better. So can you bring some level of perspective to that present moment and go, no, what this situation actually requires of me right now is for me to go the other direction. I want to go from a 5 to a 10. What the best thing I can do is go from a 5 to a 1. Mm-hmm. When I'm a 1, now the child actually they're going to reciprocate. It's the mirror effect.
Yep.
If you get anxious, even if you don't go off, that you have an energy that's literally coming out of you. That's affecting them, and they can feel it. Well, if you go from a 5 to a 1, they go like, "Whoa, what? Why is Dad in Zen mode? This is okay, yeah, Dad." It's like we always want to, as the seas get rougher, the leader gets calmer.
Yeah, I love that. And this may be the last bit. But what popped in my head there is this concept that I never really thought about, but it's we're kind of talking through it today, which is this idea of inner adaptability versus outer adaptability. We focus so much on trying to change the outer, even if there's a bit of it which is in our control. We can kind of we could argue that we should of course we should be trying to change a situation if it needs to be changed. But to your point, I think the first step is can I adapt inwardly? Can I take myself from a 7 to a 2?
Right.
Because when I get to a 2, I can better figure out how to get these bleachers in the door versus but
literally like from a physiological, I like to talk about this, like from a chemical standpoint, when you go fight or flight, your options close off. Yep. You go tunnel vision, literally tunnel vision. The shapes of your eyes literally change. I say like you have they're actually not perfectly round, but they even go more cone shaped to actually literally tunnel vision in. You're literally becoming more closed-minded. If you want to stay open-minded and look for all the different solutions, you 7 to a 2. Yep. It's literally the way to do that. Fascinating. And to your point, like just as an example, like imagine your industry gets disrupted, right? You own a huge taxi company, and all of a sudden this Uber thing pops up, right? You own a set of hotel chains, and all of a sudden this Airbnb things pops up, a disruptive company. You freaking out does nothing. And what, to your point, which I love, is what we then want to do is go and try and solve the outside thing. Well, let's create a petition. Let's go to the government. Let's do this thing. Or even let's create our own Uber company. Let's do our own. But what we first need to do, and I love you brought awareness, first is solve the inside. Solve the inside, 7 to a 2. And then from there, we'll have even more of a productive approach to any sort of changes that we're experiencing.
Very cool. Thank you, Daniel, for that question. Again, if you want to get questions in the queue, either for our 5 factors or for these workouts, find me on Instagram, PS Cummings. Ben and I are going to be right back after one more thanks to our sponsors. And we're going to talk about shout out and then a new 30-day challenge that we are going to undertake. Raise your hand if you want to be more productive and less stressed every day. Raise your other hand if you want to have more energy from sunup to sundown. And if you're driving right now and both your hands are up, I need you to make better life decisions. Here's a good life decision. Point your internet machine to landkind.health and check out the first and only sustainably engineered salidroside supplement. What the heck is salidroside? Well, it's a naturally occurring bioactive compound that's been linked to a wide range of health benefits, including anti-aging, anti-fatigue, and central nervous system activity. Landkind's clinically proven pure salidroside activates pathways in the power centers of your cell, so you can naturally produce more energy, which is different than most conventional stimulants, which basically just trick your body's receptors into recognizing false energy and leads to overtaxing of your internal systems. It works quickly, it works all day, and it lets you avoid standing in line while you wait for the barista to make your drink and call you by a name that is only sort of close to correct. Get yourself 20% off your first order or subscription at landkind.health. Just be sure to use the code EXCELLENCE at checkout. All right, we are back with our shout out. Our shout out is just when we highlight a comment, a YouTube comment or a review on Apple Podcasts, or a note that Ben and I have received, just as a way of saying thank you. This is from Sam. Sam says, I love the work Ben and you are doing. It has had a big impact on me and my ability to deal with life. How appropriate for this. Recently, I lost half my net worth at a time that my girlfriend and I bought an apartment. However bad it seemed, I got over it rather quickly and was only concerned about it for a few days, which I attribute to the journey I've embarked since I started listening to you guys on becoming a warrior. So Sam bringing in the perfect segue from a conversation around adaptability.
Hell yeah.
Good on you,
Sam.
Hopefully you got some bit of your net worth back. I obviously don't know what happened there, but all right. Thank you to Sam. All right, our cool down. As we've been doing for the last few months, we're going to do a 30-day challenge. This new one, we're going to look at whatever social media app that we use primarily. We're going to see how much time we spend on it on average every day, which you can do in multiple ways. iPhones will do it, and the app itself, I believe, will now tell you. And we're going to find that number, and we're going to cut it in half every day. Do you have any idea? I know if I had to guess, I know which app you probably use more, but do you have any idea what
It's Instagram.
Yep, sames.
And the only way I know how to measure this is over the last 10 days and just take the average.
Yeah, it actually will tell you in Instagram. It'll say what your daily average is.
Oh,
so it'll just, I don't know what it look 30 days.
The only way I do it is going to like settings, battery.
No, Instagram will now do it for you.
Where in Instagram?
Yeah, if you go into the main menu, like
that's weird that they do that. It's kind of like the casino being like, "Hey, you've been in this casino for 15 hours."
It's one of those things that they do it, I think, to placate everybody complaining about it, knowing that like
it's almost like
they're still giving you the drug, and it's like it's just
cigarettes Surgeon General warning like this.
Exactly, it doesn't stop anybody, but it makes them slightly less culpable.
I came across a statistic very recently. I think it was yesterday. That the average person spends. It was yesterday. I was looking up. We're going into digital advertising, so I was researching it. The average American spends 7 hours a day on digital,
on screens.
That is crazy. Yeah. Not on screen, not like work screens.
No.
It's like social platforms, like that. On social, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, 7
Probably Netflix,
hours a day. Yep. Yes, exactly. Yep. YouTube, Netflix, those things. That's a lot. Yep. Okay. So I looked up mine. I only knew how to do it by the last 10 days. It was 3 hours and 30 minutes for 10 days, which breaks down to 33 minutes a day.
Yep. And that's, got it. So it gave you the cumulative of 10 hours. Got it. So you're about 30. Yep.
33 minutes a day.
Yep. And I checked Instagram again as mine, and I think I'm at like 57
minutes a day.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I only follow like 20 people.
I know.
So that's like,
so it's it's interesting because, it's easy to say like, oh, imagine what like anybody will look. I'm guessing you're certainly on the low end. I'm on the lower side, but like, let's just say it's 2 hours or 3 hours. Like, it's so easy to say like, oh, what could you accomplish in those 3 hours? Which is true, but it really, like, you could start a business, you could do all these things in those 3 hours a day, which again is not true. But I think the interesting thing about those time ranges is you don't spend 30 minutes looking at Instagram. You spend 2 minutes looking at Instagram every time you have 2 minutes that you don't have something else to do.
I think I do it in like, I think I might be the exception.
You actually like sit down?
I think that like I sit down.
You are going to be an exception.
I look at once, maybe twice a day.
Yeah. Which is actually another interesting thing I think it's the iPhone settings will also tell you how many times a day you pick up your phone.
How much times you pick it up?
I was tempted to change to that, but I don't know if Android has an easy way.
All right, when we're doing this challenge, let's keep this let's give people the actual tools of like, because I have no idea how to do that.
Yeah. So again,
I also learned yesterday that when if someone's like, hey, do you have that thing that Patrick sent you? I used to go to my text messages and just scroll back forever. Did you know that you can actually like click on something and it just shows like
the attachments?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot.
No, it's just not what you care about, so you don't use it. But my point
found that out yesterday.
My point to saying all that was like, at least for me, like 50. What I thought about. I should be very specific. I saw that 57 minutes. I'm like, I'm never on Instagram more than 5 minutes at a time, and so it comes down to me or for me to be just recognizing that when am I using that? And I pick up the phone 79 times a day or whatever. That's roughly what it was. It's like, okay, like most of those times is like, I'm waiting for the kid to get out of the bath, or I'm waiting for the bus to show up and I just pull it out. So it's not like, oh gosh, I've got another hour that I can go do something else with, because that's not really how it works. But it's what else, what are you missing? What are you hiding from? What are you avoiding? I got 5 minutes, I'll look at something else. Like what happens when you don't immediately resort to, let me distract myself for these 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. And that to me is going to be, that's the challenge for me. And I think that's going to be the interesting part.
Yeah. It said similar, but maybe just a different spin is, we've talked about this a fair amount. When you are bored, it's a really attractive distraction. Yep. And to your point, you're probably not going to go and start a side hustle
in the 3 minutes. Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
But could you sit there and just
sit in it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you just be bored for a little bit? And not, because that's what if you change the word bored to something else, it's probably a big part of what being a human is about, right? Which is, we were talking about this before the show, but peace of mind.
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable with your own mind, there's no way you're going to have peace.
Yeah.
You have to have comfort before peace.
Yep.
And what people are constantly looking for is, I shouldn't say people, what social media does is distracts you away from that ability to just sit there and be pretty cool having a conversation with the coolest person you know.
That's our challenge. Cut it by 50%. We'll gather again in 30 days. You and I will talk about how that went. Thank you everybody out there for listening. Thank you for your ratings and your reviews, and most importantly for your questions. They help continue. They let us continue doing the show in the way that we've been doing it, and we appreciate it. So keep them coming. Find me on Instagram, PS Cummings, drop me a DM. Ben and I will be back next week for another episode of Chasing Excellence.